True nature of wealth. Now open your wallet and take a good long look at the currency inside. Regardless of the amount, as you gaze into each compartment, try to see these shapes, forms, and objects for what it really is. A collection of green strips of paper and metallic coins of various sizes. Ask yourself whether this is the true definition of money. Reading your monthly bank statement might suggest that money is nothing more than a succession of random numbers printed on the letterhead of a lending institution. But how is it truly defined? As oversimplified as this may sound, money is the best indication of who you really are. No one states this concept more aptly than the pioneering psychologist William James. In its purest sense, a man's self is the sum total of all that he can call his, not only his body, but his home, land, bank account, wife and children, and his psychic powers as well. If they wax and prosper, he feels triumphant. If they dwindle and die away, he feels cast down. Abraham Maslow, founder of Third Force Psychology, believed there is a tendency in our lives for self-actualization. Maslow referred to self-actualization as the clamoring of capacities to be used, a restlessness for self-development, accomplishment, and esteem. Your full potential emerges not just when you develop skills, but when you first unlock the door to the internal resources of the mind waiting to be tapped. Unlocking that door simply comes by altering your pattern of thought. Maxwell Maltz, the renowned plastic surgeon, underscored Maslow's point. He theorized that imagination plays a far more crucial role in life than one is led to believe. According to Maltz, creative imagination is not something reserved for the poets, the philosophers, the inventors. It enters into our every act. Imagination sets the goal picture that our automatic mechanism works on. We act or fail to act not because of will, as is commonly believed, but because of imagination. Harvard psychologist William James, in his Principles of Psychology, defined genius as little more than the faculty of perceiving in an unhabitual way. In his essay on behavior, he referred to habit as the enormous flywheel of society, its most precious conservative agent. It alone is what keeps us all within the bounds of ordinance and saves the children of fortune from the envious uprisings of the poor. Every fortune has its start in the mind of a single man or woman. The affluent take to heart Dr. James's definition of genius by making note of their surroundings, particularly in their work and environment, with new eyes, the eyes of possibilities and no limit. Millionaires form the habit of seeing things not as they are, but as they perhaps will be, as they could be, as they insist they be. To be wealthy, sight is a quality of mind, a mental perception, not just a physical process. As the wealthy strive to reach their objectives, they train their thinking and beliefs to correctly capture what lies in their view. Through mental habits and practice, the affluent cut a path where none existed before. Seeing well is essential to seizing well. To an extraordinary degree, wealth creators do both. Seeing their ultimate goal in their mind's eye, they bring together ideas from different contexts to construct a completely new entity. These women and men view their surroundings not as material, but as ideas in action. Unlike most of us, they focus not on circumstances, but on opportunity. What effect has the traditional outlook of Black America had on their community? With the possible exception of the American Indian, no group has suffered more, endured more, or been impeded more than African Americans. Most immigrants came to this land of hope and promise with their culture intact and bolstered by strong self-esteem, both of which have resulted in an ever-regenerating entrepreneurial spirit. Blacks, however, were broken down physically and emotionally and systematically denied opportunities to be either employee or employer. Since the dawn of American history, at the hand of government and private enterprise alike, African Americans have been forced to run faster and dig deeper just to enjoy the most basic human necessities. And the result? a misapprehension of the fundamental codes and concepts of capital and markets, and a cynical view as to the root cause of wealth and prosperity. This distorted mindset has taken a severe toll. As this is written, in 2012, with the first black president in the White House, race relations have made enormous strides over previous decades. However, the statistics regarding black wealth still remain quite dismal. So dismal that far too often we black Americans fail to grab hold and utilize the third law of wealth, faith, to lift ourselves out of our financial doldrums. It is doubtful that any other law has proved to be the turning point in more lives. Faith has been the miracle worker of the ages. The third law has rallied and motivated more millionaires, sending them back to their dreams and visions that they had abandoned in moments of discouragement. This one word has kept scores of businessmen and women from failure after they had given up hope. Personally, I have listened to story after story from participants in this study who shared how this quality aroused their ambition, changed their ideals, and propelled them to the successful undertaking of what they before had thought impossible. No one can become prosperous while he or she expects to remain poor. You cannot exceed the limits that you set for yourself. Before you can lift yourself, you must first lift your spirits, and spirit is another word for faith. If anything, this text is replete with examples of ordinary men and women of average ability who have seized routine occasions in order to reach their financial goals. Although it's true that African Americans have cleared many of the steepest hurdles and gone far in a short period of time, why haven't we seen more wealth creators? Why haven't black Americans developed a large and more prosperous wealth identity? The core reason, according to the eminent black sociologist E. Franklin Frazier, is that blacks lacked experience in buying and selling, which are at the heart of the spirit of business. Others, such as the famed historian Carter G. Woodson, believe the reason goes much deeper. Woodson theorized in his seminal tome, The Miseducation of the Negro, that if you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his action. When you determine what a man shall think, you do not have to concern yourself about what he will do. If you make a man feel that he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status, for he will seek it himself. If you make a man think that he is justly an outcast, you do not have to order him to the back door. He will go without being told. And if there is no back door, his very nature will demand one. This attitude, warned economist Walter Williams on the editorial pages of the Philadelphia Inquirer, droned on year after year, not only undercuts youthful initiative, but affects the mindset of those teetering on the brink of giving up all hope of cutting a huge slice of the American economic pie. But black America is currently living in the middle of a revolution, one that is as earth-shaking a change as was the Industrial Revolution, in which humans shifted from horse-drawn carriage to supersonic travel. What lies at the core of this revolution is not manual dexterity. It is information, the marriage of learning and creativity, and knowledge. Knowledge is no longer a source of power. It is the source of power. Prosperity and its antithesis, poverty, are based on formal ideas, knowledge, and a limited belief system, not on class, culture, or race. With regard to Dr. James's reference to psychic powers, one of the most important behaviors utilized by today's black wealthy is the habit of faith and belief. It seems that most successful and wealthy individuals are men and women of faith. By faith, I am not implying that millionaires believe or follow a dogmatic doctrine of inflexible codes of conduct. On the contrary, the habit of faith requires simply that you believe that there is a higher power in the universe that desires a spiritual relationship with you and wants the best for you. The greater your faith, the greater your confidence that everything occurs for a reason and equally for your benefit. Throughout this research, I uncovered perhaps the most important faith-filled mental and spiritual principle that the wealthy hold dear. You become what you think about. In other words, our outer world is a mirror image of our inner world. What occurs on the outside of our lives is often the reflection of what is going on inside of our lives. According to the high net worth men and women in this study, you can discern the inner condition of an individual by looking at the outer condition of his or her life. People are often puzzled as to why the wealthy and affluent continue to build on and increase their resources, and why the impoverished or unsuccessful tend to remain in poverty. This refrain resembles the old saying, "The rich get richer and the poor get poorer," which is largely true. The poor do not, as a rule, get poorer, but they tend to remain poor, while the affluent tend to become even more prosperous. One reason for this phenomenon is the hopelessness and despair that restrict poor people's lives. Their inability to dream, to encapsulate aspirations beyond their current circumstances, to envision positive results is just as much a cause of their lack of financial success as is their poverty. Why is this such a problem? Because we are all creatures of habit. People at the bottom of the economic scale are as bound by the habits that have resulted in their lack of prosperity as the successful are bound by theirs. Theirs is a conservatism of the poor that is every bit as strong as the conservatism of the rich. People, in general, tend to avoid anything that smacks of change. One would think the unsuccessful or poor would welcome any kind of change, but they don't. They have grown used to their ways of life and feel that change might be for the worse. Affluence in life is not so much a matter of talent or opportunity as it is of concentration, persistence, and hope. The converse of this proposition is equally as important. A self-limiting belief system can almost be damning. One of the great moments in humanity's long evolution occurred when people discovered that they could be free, that they could control their destiny. This didn't mean, nor did people think it meant, that they could control the elements or the giant beasts lurking in the world. However, this did mean that people could take charge of their own affairs and somehow alter the conditions surrounding their lives by changing their thoughts and belief system. How millionaires use the power of faith and belief. Best-selling author T. Harv Eker wrote in his book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, that we live in a world of duality, up and down, light and dark, hot and cold, in and out, and fast and slow. These are but a few examples of the thousands of opposite poles. For one pole to exist, the other pole must also exist. Consequently, just as there are outer laws of money, there must be inner laws as well. The outer laws include concepts such as business knowledge, money management, and investment strategies. These are essential, but the inner game is equally as important. An analogy would be the quality of a carpenter's tools. Using top-of-the-line tools is imperative, but being a top-notch carpenter who masterfully uses these tools is even more critical. Eker goes on to share that it's not enough to be in the right place at the right time. You must be the right person in the right place at the right time. So, who are you? How do you engage in critical thinking? What are your beliefs? What are your habits and traits? How confident are you? Do you truly believe that you deserve wealth? What is your ability to act in spite of fear, anxiety, inconvenience, and discomfort? Your character, your thoughts, and your beliefs are critical aspects of what determines the level of your financial success. The financial elite have long since recognized that financial independence should be one of life's major goals. Thankfully, financial independence is easier to achieve today than at any other point in human history. There are literally thousands of examples of men and women who started with nothing or found themselves buried deeply in debt and still managed to build financial empires. We live in one of the wealthiest countries in the world in a time of growth and prosperity. We are surrounded by more economic well-being and affluence than ever before. By mastering the laws of wealth and adjusting their mindset, the wealthy and affluent make it their business to gain their fair share of abundance. They've come to know that the roots of wealth grow from seeds of thought, seeds that only they can plant. Question your beliefs. The law of belief states, whatever you believe, with feeling and conviction, becomes your reality. People, millionaires included, act in a manner consistent with their deepest and most intensely held beliefs, regardless of whether they are true. Our beliefs largely determine our reality. Secretly, if not overtly, nearly everyone desires to become rich. In other words, to enjoy the fruits of a prosperous life. So, if the desire is there, why do the vast majority fail to achieve financial success and its attendant rewards? Simply put, far too many have-nots believe they are incapable of reaching such positions. Consequently, they've never developed a blueprint for altering their financial status, nor have they created a plan to gain access to those who have actually reached the level they wish to attain. For example, take the typical day in the life of the average worker. So many give 1/3 of their day to a job they don't particularly enjoy. Moreover, after arriving home from a hard day's work, they spend the remainder of their day engaging in various activities hoping to ease the frustrations heaped on them during the day. This displeasure with their chosen career path affects relationships with their spouses, children, and friends, and stifles thoughts and desires of improving their lives. And yet, they forge on, believing they must. Most people unwillingly drag themselves to work on Monday while fixated on the clock until Friday, when they can finally free themselves of the shackles they believe they are forced to endure for 5 long, painful days. They receive exactly what they expect from life: boredom, frustration, roadblocks, and meager earnings. He can who thinks he can, and he can't who believes he can't. This law is inexorable and indisputable. We are what we believe ourselves to be, nothing more, nothing less. So many people are quick to believe that these men and women who have accrued wealth and influence are highly favored by fortune. But it is closer to the truth to say that their success is the result of expectations, the sum of their creative, positive, habitual thinking. The riches they enjoy are nothing more than the manifestation of their attitude and mindset. They have created what they possess out of their constructive thought and their unquenchable faith in themselves. As it is the fierceness of the heat that melts the iron ore and makes it possible to wield it or mold it into shape, as it is the intensity of the electrical force that dissolves the diamond, the hardest known substance, so it is true that the law of belief attracts prosperity to those who think it is possible. We do not believe what we see. Rather, we see what we believe. Millionaires seem able to pick up signals that others miss. Wealth creators see a pattern that spells opportunity or impending danger. This sensitivity to cues may emanate from previous knowledge, intuition, or belief systems. We can possess life-enriching beliefs about ourselves that promote happiness and optimism, or we can foster negative beliefs regarding our potential that eventually will surface as roadblocks to the realization of all that is truly possible. As one respondent shared as I quizzed him on potential and possibilities, if you're not a millionaire or bankrupt by your 30th birthday, he explained, you're not really trying. I've never begun anything with the idea that I couldn't succeed, and I never had much patience with those who were ready to explain why I couldn't. Another survey participant was a bit philosophical, choosing just the right metaphor to convey his point. Wealth is a byproduct of your thinking. I can't make you wealthy by giving you a handout, but I can place you on the road to prosperity by teaching you what I know. He then gave a stunning interpretation of the oft-used quote from Benjamin Mays, President Emeritus of Morehouse College. Not to reach one's goals is not nearly as bad as having no goal to reach. Law of cause and effect. Since economic thought first became formalized more than 2 centuries ago, 2 different schools of reasoning have revolved around wealth and its creation. One view, espoused by the English mathematician Thomas Malthus, contends that wealth is primarily physical and therefore finite and limited. However, the second view, defined by the French economist Jean-Baptiste Say and later classified by the Scottish economist and moral philosopher Adam Smith in his seminal work, The Wealth of Nations, states that wealth is essentially metaphysical. As it is the result of ideas, imagination, innovation, and individual creativity, it is therefore unlimited. This outlook not only lies at the heart of the law of cause and effect, but is so powerful, pervasive, and all-encompassing that it affects everything we think, say, or do. Black millionaires embrace no other mental law, at an ever-increasing rate, than the law of cause and effect. This law simply asserts that wealth and prosperity are the direct effect of specific causes and actions. By adhering to this fundamental principle, the wealthy shatter many cherished, time-wasting myths, including the widely accepted belief that financial independence is the result of some mysterious, carefully guarded secret. Countless respondents have clearly demonstrated that achieving major financial objectives is a matter of developing and consistently practicing the same simple habits that all millionaires employ, and that these habits work 100% of the time. Moreover, anyone willing to put forth the necessary effort can learn and develop these habits. In the application of this law, I have found the wealthy to possess an intense desire to grow, to outperform not only their competitors, but their own previous results as well. They keep score. They measure their progress. Moreover, they don't permit the lack of money or resources to constrain them. Black millionaires believe it is better to hold fast to a workable plan and lack money than to possess a fortune and aimlessly drift. Wealth begins in the mind, one respondent stated as we conversed during a focus group. 40 years ago, I was dead broke without 2 dimes to rub together, but I was just as prosperous then as I am today. Why? Because in my mind I held grander visions. I sought out and emulated those who achieved financial success. I learned there is nothing as sad as the man or woman who prevents his own success by programming himself with thoughts of failure and mediocrity. One Washington, D.C. entrepreneur whose income is in the 7-figure range has an outlook on life that is exactly what I expected it to be. Very happy and fulfilling. Yet fulfillment wasn't something that had come early to him. In advising young people who may want to follow in his footsteps, he said, "You must be sure this is something you really want to do. You must be committed and focused. If the passion is not there, find something else to do." He then placed a high premium on setting the right priorities. "Forget the drive for the dollar," he said. "Go where your heart and mind take you. Then make sure your words, actions, deeds, and thoughts are congruent to your goals and desires." It was on his road to millionaireship that another member of the black financial elite discovered the paradox of wealth. Over lunch in his resplendent Greensboro, North Carolina home, he shared the following thoughts. Wealth and poverty are literally states of mind. True wealth lies within the human spirit and is attitudinal. It stems from the ability to sacrifice today for the sake of tomorrow, and consists not chiefly in things, but in thought. More than 2 decades ago, I launched my business with less than $1,000, and today I'm part owner of several enterprises, including a 380-room Columbus, Ohio hotel, and a string of daycares, and real estate holdings in Hilton Head, South Carolina. Though my parents never owned a car, I own several luxury models. Realizing ever-present opportunity is your greatest gift. By assuming the responsibility for the quality of your thoughts and actions, you can drastically alter your life. You've heard it before, but it bears repeating. Change the thought and you change the experience. But there are still mountains to climb. While our race has finally achieved basic freedoms, there's still the critical issue of uncommon freedom that is more or less economic in scope. Pursuit of this next level must be won by tightening our grip on individual freedoms and initiative. Civil rights must give way to silver rights. In other words, financial and fiscal initiative. Finally, another interviewee who also insisted on anonymity sat back in his creaky old swivel chair, shaking his head in disbelief as he pondered Black America's spending habits. As a people, We're 3 times the size of Sweden and damn near 3 times as wealthy. They produce a car and sell it across the globe. We don't even make a lousy pair of gym shoes. Why sugarcoat the truth? Though we can't change the color of our skin, we can sure change the color of our thinking. Through their words and deeds, the financial elite have proven that wealth is not a function of the matter or physical resources we can measure, but of the ideas, action steps, and behavioral patterns we can't calibrate or quantify. Law of control. If you asked a handful of men or women caught in the grips of a midlife crisis and barely making ends meet why they fell short of capturing their fair share of the American dream, you might be shocked by their responses. With regard to reaching clear and delineated financial goals, some would offer that they never had a chance, that fortune eluded their appeal, or that they were held in check by circumstances. They lacked opportunities, contacts, connections, or proper schooling. Probably 9 out of 10 would sing this sad refrain or plead some similar excuse. Yet probabilities suggest that opportunity did visit these individuals more than once in their youth or adulthood, but they failed to see that wealth consisted of conducting their affairs in a prompt and professional manner. As young adults, they failed to view every errand or chore as a chance to display a work ethic that exhibited promptness, energy, and professional behavior, or their lessons in school as the cornerstone to lifelong success. They did not conceive that, during the demoralizing idle hours of leisure, yawning, and boredom that they wove into the fiber of their lives, others were seizing opportunities and improving the lives of their fellow man. They did not envision that their slipshod methods, their careless attire, and their negative attitude would hinder future success. As a rule, people who unlock the door of opportunity and make their mark in the world do so because they have found a way to elbow their way to the table. What others do and have done for them has no comparison to what they have done for themselves. The child who has been brought up in luxury and not obliged to work, whose talents and skills are never called into question, rarely walks through the door labeled world's richest. All too often, the man or woman who was crowded out and even kicked out turns out while those who are pampered fail to come out. The habit of depending on the self, a determination to uncover interpersonal resources, develops strength as well as wealth. No, it is not opportunity, chance, luck, and influential friends that create abundance or prosperity. Wealth will always be found within the individual, or it will not be discovered at all. The golden opportunity that so many seek is completely within your control, just as the Creator planned. A female respondent who launched a New York-based public relations agency views financial independence as a matter of self-sufficiency. Her early days in business were marked with struggle and self-doubt. But now, as she puts it, I think I've got a handle on things. She represents a number of top-shelf clients and is highly sought after in her field. Still, wealth doesn't end here. There's an inner dimension involving spiritual growth, inner peace, and emotional stability. Prosperity goes beyond the dollar sign, she states. It encompasses the total package: harmony, comfort, and emotional well-being. I deal with a lot of people who society would label successful, those who have all the outward signs or material trappings. In a few cases, I wouldn't be so quick to agree. While chasing the brass ring, inner control of their lives has slipped through the very hands of those we parade as models of success. There is only one success: spending your life in your own way. When asked for her formula for wealth, a 50-year-old plus female who goes to battle each day on Wall Street replied in rather traditional, objective terms: continuous hard work, stubborn determination, faith, and a fierce desire for independence. Is that all? I asked. Sure, there's other factors, she replied, but wealth creation, for the most part, doesn't deviate or vary its requirements. These are the 4 main qualities that have served me well throughout my career. A highly successful Boston, Massachusetts-based entrepreneur struck the same note. She spoke meditatively about the sacrifices she had made in the process of launching her technology firm. My struggle to outrun poverty has done more to develop my character than anyone will ever know. Had I been born with a silver spoon in my mouth, there would have been no necessity for me to work, to build, to dream, or to provide a much-needed service. As soon as I decided to step outside of my self-enclosed cocoon, I immediately began to benefit from the scope and breadth that wealth demands. And my story applies to my peers as well. Had the bulk of millionaires been born wealthy, we would still be in the dark ages. Our vast resources would be untapped and our cities underdeveloped. As human beings, we are wired to make our greatest effort and perform at our best while struggling to attain the desires of our heart. Although financial independence has not come easy, this self-made woman now clearly seems to be in charge of the direction of her affairs. Isn't it strange that so many of our children, born and bred in the midst of luxury, who have always leaned on others, who have never been obliged to elbow their way to the table, and who have been coddled and fitted with crutches from infancy, void of the strongest possible motive for the development of their power, rarely develop in any aspect of life, whether financial or otherwise? Then consider how many immigrants, young, old, male, female, and nearly all poor, come to this country uneducated, ignorant of the language, friendless and penniless, and yet have risen to positions of distinction and wealth, putting to shame millions of native-born children who possessed every advantage of wealth, education, and opportunity, but have never been heard from. As a college professor, I see this scenario all day long. Consider one young man who arrived on these shores a short time ago on the lowest ring of the economic ladder, but has already risen to a position of importance wholly unaided. He is a fine example of a self-educated, self-trained, and self-disciplined individual. He has brought out his latent qualities and strengthened his weaker traits. He has pruned out of his thoughts and habits those words and images that would embarrass his culture and hinder his progress. He has gained so much momentum that there seems to be no limit as to what he is likely to become. His is an inspiring example of the possibilities in this country, one that explodes all excuses and myths of poor children who believe they have little to no chance of advancing in this world. When asked for his thoughts, George Fraser, CEO of the Cleveland, Ohio-based Success Guide, a networking journal, took a page from the behavioral psychologist Abraham Maslow, who coined the phrase internal locus of control. Fraser says, "The happiest and most contented people are those in pursuit of their dreams or ideals. How would I define wealth or prosperity? I'm doing what I want to do. It's not monetary. It's not work. It's all of the above. Prosperity isn't measured in numbers, fame, or money. It's not a line drawn somewhere just above the $1 million mark. Prosperity involves choosing your own destiny and living out your potential in your own way." Fraser discovered this definition and its meaning firsthand once he left an $85,000 a year post with the United Way nearly 20 years ago to chase brighter rainbows. Faith and self-help have built nearly all the grand fortunes in Black America. Education, capital, and contacts may indeed awaken and arouse you, and perhaps uncover hidden dangers along the way, but these qualities cannot move you a single step on the road to wealth and prosperity. It is your own legs that must perform this task. A moving picture of belief, trust, and patience was that of Farrah Gray, who was buried in poverty and struggled with hardship for nearly 20 long years before capturing success and amassing his fortune. Many a man or woman facing a situation like his would have been depressed, daunted, and demoralized. But not Gray. On the contrary, he embraced his challenges, learned the difficult lessons that his circumstances taught, and persevered in the face of failure. How does a young man who grew up on the south side of Chicago end up shaking hands with the President of the United States? How does a person who once lived in a car with his family get invited to spend Christmas at the White House? How does this young boy mingle with high-powered CEOs of Fortune 500 companies and make it onto the cover of Black Enterprise magazine at 16? The story of Farrah Gray's genius has been told many times, and the lesson is always the same. It is a tale of how black millionaires reach their lofty status through a combination of ability, opportunity, and a heavy dose of faith. If your faith is of the right sort, it will sharpen your faculties, quicken your energy, heighten your self-esteem, strengthen your character, and provide clarity and meaning to your goals. Born in 1984 to a single mother and the youngest of 5 children, Gray grew up in the projects of Chicago, dreaming of the day his entrepreneurial wings would take flight. That day didn't take long. Precocious and easily bored, at age 6, he began pursuing his pot of gold by peddling door-to-door homemade body lotions and his own hand-painted rocks as bookends and paperweights. Gray was hooked when he earned his first dime. 1 year later, he decided to forecast his future by printing business cards that read, 21st Century CEO. By age 8, hoping to create an entrepreneurial explosion, Gray launched the Urban Neighborhood Enterprise Economic Club on Chicago's South Side. It became the forerunner of the flagship organization he opened on Wall Street at the ripe age of 15, the youngest ever to do so. As a child, Gray constantly questioned adults. He vowed not to be in the same position as his mother, working like crazy from job to job with little to show for it. While his mother couldn't give him much in the way of material possessions, she did give her son a strong faith and a deep sense of curiosity. He wanted to know everything about everything, his mother recalled. No subject was off base, especially money. Regardless of the topic, I explained as best that I could, and, when I couldn't, I told him to figure it out for himself. With no one to guide him but his mother and his faith, Gray became the perfect example of the self-made man. As to how I reached my financial goals, Gray told me and a New Orleans audience, some people call it conscience, but I prefer to call it the voice of God. If you listen and obey it, then it will speak loud and clear and guide you with little obstruction. But if you turn a deaf ear or disobey, then that voice will fade out little by little, leaving you in the dark. Your life depends on heeding that still small voice. I sat in attendance at the gathering as Gray doled out in a constant stream advice and counsel as to how anyone could attain a 7-figure income. 1. Don't give up on your dreams. Great ventures start with small ideas. Don't be afraid to experiment. Keep your eyes open, your mind working, and your body ready for work. There's no need to hit a home run your first time out, but you will never hit a home run if you don't learn to swing. I only made $9 on my first business, but it was probably the most important $9 I ever made. 2. Sacrifice is necessary for long-term success. I've taken pride in celebrating my food stamps to finance journey. Some people don't like to talk about being poor. I don't mind. It keeps me grounded. I will never forget what it felt like to be an elite member of the have-nots. I understand weeping, and I understand joy. Whatever I've achieved is due in part to any number of sacrifices that I have rendered. 3. Hard work and persistence pay off. The wealthy work harder and sleep less than average men and women. But because they're passionate regarding their chosen field, they're less likely to view their labor as a chore. In the annals of success, we see the same story. We are told that it is lesson after lesson with scholar, brick after brick with the mason, crop after crop with the farmer, painting after painting with the artist, and note after note with the musician that secures what so many desire. Never take no for an answer. 4. In the words of my grandmother, qualify to justify. Give others reason to support you. Prove yourself worthy. The best reasons are honesty, integrity, respect, and a strong work ethic. Finally, one of the nation's top black contractors, someone who has built and controls real estate developments from New York to Phoenix, Arizona, offered a common sentiment. Whether it was delivering newspapers, working on the family farm, or mowing lawns, black millionaires don't just fantasize about becoming wealthy. They exercise their faith and begin the long, slow march toward their future. The greatest task that anyone can perform, he shared, is to make the most out of the resources you've been given. This is wealth, and there is no other. Prosperity comes not from doing the impossible, but by doing the possible every day. We only need to perform single acts of success each day in order to create a prosperous life. New rules of money. How is wealth created and maintained by seemingly average men and women with few special skills or talents? What do the wealthy do on a consistent basis? What disciplines have they developed or followed that allow them to achieve their dreams? Over the course of my research, I've stood toe-to-toe with hundreds of black millionaires, and I've found this constant trait. They hold fast to an abiding faith. All too often, those who hunt for wealth and abundance never find it. For example, many of the most profitable gold and diamond mines were abandoned time and again before their hidden wealth was discovered by the more persevering and faithful prospectors. Dissatisfied with superficial drilling, these men and women ventured down into the very core of the earth until they found their treasure. As a result, they became enormously wealthy, while other miners who quit, surrendered, or wandered from claim to claim, never giving their time or energy to a single stake or exercising enough faith in their possibilities to dig deeper, died in poverty. Millions of down-and-out men and women held possibilities that would have made them leaders in the field of commerce and industry, masters in their chosen endeavor. Multitudes of employees could have become employers. Instead, they grow complacent while struggling in inferior positions, all because they lack the faith in their ability to move to the front of the line. The channels by which black millionaires reach their financial goals are clear and straightforward. When your thoughts are clearly and confidently centered on a desired outcome, all that is good and right will be drawn to you by your own thinking. This is the spiritual law of the universe that you will encounter as you hope to join the financial elite. While some might believe that suggesting that thought controls every aspect of your life is too simplistic, constantly check your habits as well as any self-limiting beliefs. Each of us is a living magnet, constantly attracting results, people, and circumstances that are in accord with our thoughts. Financially speaking, you are where you are because of your past deeds, actions, and thoughts. I believe you have been drawn to this audiobook by the aforementioned mental laws. It could just be that the wealth choice is an idea whose time has come in your life. People never reach heights above their level of thought and belief. By controlling your thoughts, not only will you transform your own life and financial condition, you will begin to impact the lives of those around you. As of this moment, you need only to step out on faith. After a decade of heartbreak and disappointment, setback and defeat, playwright and producer Tyler Perry may have said it best when he emphasized the third law of wealth. Believe in thyself when no one else will. When asked how he rose from living in a car on the streets of New Orleans to become one of the highest-paid filmmakers in Hollywood, he unapologetically leaned on his faith. In a nutshell, Perry said, "Nothing but the grace of God. You must never stop believing." Millionaire lesson number 4. When you make up your mind that you are done with poverty, that you will have nothing more to do with it, that you are going to erase every trace of it from your appearance, your manner, your speech, your actions, your home, your associates, that you are no longer going to tolerate poverty or put up with it, that you have charted a new direction, centered squarely on competence and independence, and that nothing on earth can turn you from your goal, you will be amazed to discover a newfound power replete with confidence, reassurance, self-respect, and prosperity. Resolve within that wealth is your divine destiny.